Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Platinum City Gaming Live. I'm Van. What's going on, Chris?
Nothing much, my good man. How are you this lovely Monday?
Fucking fired up and ready to go. I'm not
I know
even.
we
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
no. We sort of like did this little backwards. We got into a little bit of a discussion prior, so it's like,
I
okay, come
know.
on, games.
It's like trying to come down from like a roid rage or something like that. It's just not gonna. It's not gonna work out.
Exactly. So it's just one of those, we're going to be at like a 20 for the first at least 20 so minutes. So it's just kind of like, all right, just turn down the volume a little bit and then just work the volume back up later on.
Yeah. We'll edit out the volume for the recording later on. Like you said, we'll turn everything down.
There you go. Yes.
I think you might be all set, dude. Today, I think we might actually have your volume where it should be.
You know what? And that's good. And I mean, you sound fine, but then again, you sounded fine before. So, and whoever popped on when we were sound testing Tuesday or Wednesday, I think it was. So, awesome. You got to hear our, hey, testing.
Yeah,
Hello? Hello?
yeah. It was like the test. So far so good, I believe. We have a
Good
couple
deal.
people that I know that I'm talking through that are listening to it, and they're gonna be
Nice.
our testers as well. So we'll see how
Good
it
deal.
goes. But
Mhm.
how was your 2 weeks, my friend? We had some time off, brother. How was it?
Yeah, we did. Lonely. It was like I was sitting there Monday and I just kind of sat like here the entire time. I'm like, well, maybe I can reenact this. And I'm like, okay. But no, I got much needed game time in, which is always a good thing. Finally broke apart from the mobile gaming, started giving my PS4 some loving too. So that's really good. My buddy at work got me slid back into 14 with Heavensward coming out next month, and he just reminded me that I had the collector's edition on pre-order. So I'm like, okay, so might as well jump back into that.
The
So, I
collector's
mean,
edition of what? 14?
Heavensward,
Oh,
yeah, the expansion.
the expansion pack that's coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was
So
like,
you're getting that? You're getting the expansion?
oh yeah,
Oh, nice. Now,
yeah.
is the expansion, is it a patch that it downloads to,
No,
or?
well, it's a full-fledged expansion. I mean, it's a whole nother disc if we want to talk about tradition, but I mean, they've new worlds, flying mounts, level cap increase, I think a new race, two new classes, or actually, I think three new classes.
Now, they didn't have the ninja race, right? And that's what they
It's
added to it?
No, it's already live. Because I'm rolling a ninja right now.
And that's one
Sorry,
of the
a
new
rogue.
classes, right?
Yeah, that's one of the classes they patched in.
Okay.
They patched in the ninja, rogue slash ninja.
Oh,
So
you're saying that one's live, not the expansion.
yes.
Okay.
No, yeah. The expansion drops the 23rd, I believe, of next month. But no, you get Dark Knight, you get Machinist, and you get Astro Mage, something like that. It's weird because it's like a blue mage, red mage hybrid. It's a battle heal class essentially. So, but
Really?
yeah, definitely excited for that. More excited for the flying mounts, the new worlds, which is supposed to be huge in comparison to what it was in 2.0. So, definitely good stuff coming down the line for that. I mean, what have you been up to on your hiatus?
Um, Nothing.
Well, how's the lounge doing?
Good. The launch is doing great. A lot more people. This week we didn't have a tournament, so no tournaments this week. But this coming week we got Mario Party and FIFA 15. So, but a lot more kids are coming out, hanging out, which is really what I'm looking for. Is a lot of the kids coming out. I mean, I'd love to have people participate in the tournaments as well, considering that's what pays the bills. But the kids are showing up. The kids are loving it. The
Good.
kids are enjoying it, and the word's getting out very rapidly. So, with the nice weather being around, that's huge. So very exciting. I'm looking forward to an exciting summer. I can't wait. So we'll find
Sweet.
out what the summer has in store for us.
Nice, good deal. Hopefully, nothing but good things.
Yeah. Don't mind me as I keep looking back. The wife is back here grabbing a cage, and I just keep looking back. So everyone's probably like, "What the f- is he looking at?" But
It's like, well, we know the wife aggro, so and especially if anybody and everyone in the family should know Amy. So yeah, you always have to keep one eye on her whenever she's in the room.
yeah, you just got to give me some kind of symbol or something, Chris. If you see her starting to stalk into the background,
Yeah,
and just...
you'll sort of see me do the lean back, like, oh god.
But yeah. So anyways, So yeah, I mean, as far as gaming wise,
Hmm.
I haven't really gotten to. Actually, no, I've been playing a lot of Mortal Kombat.
Oh,
Um,
how is that?
I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of it. I like it a lot. But just that's until Tekken comes out, of course.
Of
But
course.
I think it's definitely a big improvement over the last few games. It's a lot like what they've just recently, the last Mortal Kombat that came out.
Okay.
So and it reminds me of Injustice, but a lot more fluid. So
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I like it. I like it a lot. And then I've been playing NHL a lot as well, which has been out for a
Okay.
little while, but I've been trying to
Yeah.
get really good at that. So,
All right.
other than that, man, just nothing really. Setting up stuff at the lounge. We set up,
Hmm.
and I posted all this month's and next month's tournament. So we have all the way up into June, the whole month of
Oh,
June
nice.
posted up, so everyone knows what's going on. Once a month, 1 week in a month, we will not be running tournaments. So the kind
Okay.
of allow me to enjoy time in the summer. So.
Yeah. Understandable.
But so our topic of today is we're going to talk a little bit about history of gaming. Not so much the
Yeah.
history. I want to say more or less the difficulty level of games through time. Just the,
Yeah.
pretty much just how games changed. In the sense of toughness and the replay value, I like to say the
Yeah.
replay value of a game and what it means to us. I don't want to get into the gaming history, like okay, exactly every detail, how games change from graphics to sounds to all that, but we're going to
Yeah.
cover more or less just the difficulty level of it. I guess we can say.
Yeah. Well, and and that within itself is its own progression, because obviously, technology and let's just say the generations of games and their systems, it's just you always get the graphics and you always get, the gameplay and things like that. But it's kind of like, difficulty level, replayability, kind of what we get out of the games. It can almost be within its own, category or timeline, for lack of better terms.
Right, right. So, I guess the best place to start is the Atari is. And I think
Okay.
not even just so much the Atari, NES. I guess we can kind of lump those into one large sum. We'll keep Super Nintendo's generation out of it because now that's kind of the next level. Even
Okay.
though regular Nintendo is pretty far after Atari, but
Hmm.
we'll get into that as just one lump sum because those games were
Okay.
very similar in a lot of ways. So now with the Atari phases, anything before Atari, Commodore 64, stuff like that, there really wasn't even Commodore 64. Yeah, it was more just dots moving around. So they're
Yeah.
difficult, really, in the sense of there wasn't much to do. So I guess the
No.
difficult level was a little bit different. But once you start getting into the Atari, the real Atari, it was the 7600. I think is that what it?
I
56,
thought it was.
6200.
I, I think it might have. Well, I know the original Atari was 28,
Yeah,
2600, and then however many iterations. But I mean, even then, that you took your
Tw-
side scrolling. I mean, obviously Pong. You had Pitfall, Tanks,
yeah,
God awful ET.
yeah.
That whole, I guess, the Atari line.
Yeah,
Because I
50
mean,
the 5200 and then there's the
okay.
7800 which I have them all but it's hard to really
Hmm.
remember them all. So that's 7800 came out in 86, I think. Yeah, 86, that's
Okay.
what it says here. So that whole genre of games like you said Pitfall, stuff like that. Now
Hmm.
we have more of a atmosphere and a meaning to the game
Yeah.
the play. So like Pitfall, you got to jump over the pits and stuff. Now, the difficulty level in these games because they didn't have a story. Then the whole thing was just like, let's make this extremely hard and frustrate the shit out of everyone that tries to play it, and that was
Yeah.
really their goal. So the that type of play back then was really important. So
Hmm.
even regular Mario Brothers at that time was difficult. I mean, now you go through Mario Brothers, you're running through Mario Brothers like it's nothing because I mean, I think there's everyone in the world knows how to play Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
But at that time, the philosophy of how to control your guy, it didn't exist. So everyone's just like, jump and hit a block and get a coin. Why do I want
Yeah.
to get this mushroom? So, yeah, I mean, the difficulty level of games for that time was the purpose of the game. It wasn't. They didn't have stories. You know, your story was make it to the end, save the freaking princess. That's it. You
Yeah.
know, and that pretty much was the gist of every game.
Well, and yeah, because I don't think the depth was there, because it was kind of like, now games have just so many different things that you can do, so many different ways to it, tackle something, do something with, we'll just call it, for lack of better words, 8-bit.
Hmm.
The 8-bit era, it's kind of like linear. You had point A to point B. That's all you had to do. So the best thing developers could give you was just pretty much throwing stuff at you.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw that with obviously Super Mario Brothers. We saw that with Ghouls and Ghost.
Hmm.
Demon's Crest was another one of those. I mean, and I'm just Golden Axe, I believe, also
Oh.
ActRaiser.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you started getting, and I believe those last two were still
ActRaiser was Super Nintendo.
okay. Scratch that one.
Yep.
But they were still linear, and you just had jump, attack, back off. You started adding elements when you go beyond Mario, health, armor, different type of dynamics, but you were still kind of jumping. And I guess the only way you got some sort of motivation was to go further.
Right. Right.
If you had the queen, princess, girlfriend, which was the commonality a lot of times with those, it's you had to save her.
Mhm.
When you had the antagonist kind of poking at you every single time. And I think primitively, I that's where our nature is.
Mhm.
And I think if you think about it, and one step deeper, us as men, we're protective. Not nurturing in the sense like how a female is. And I'm not gender casting, but
No, no.
like we're protecting. Muscles. We just provide for our family. So I think it's smart how you see it with developers were always stereotyped kung fu. You had to save his girlfriend, Mario, princess. I mean, it was always that save her. This big, bad, stereotypical bad guy took her. You don't know why. He just came in and took her. So it's just kind of like, I got to go. And all of a sudden you die and you're like, no, I can't. I got to go back. So I think that's it had a lot to do with that kind of mindset.
And it's like nowadays, me and you have had discussions about, with the PlayStation, I got to platinum all these games. Back then, it wasn't so much platinum, but it's like, I got to beat this game as fast as possible. Oh, you beat the game with more scores? Oh, I got to go back and play it. The replay value was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I mean, a big part of it is, games weren't as long and as in depth as they are now. Like now, you're spending like 80, 90, over 100 hours on playing some of these games, not all of them, some of them. And so that makes it kind of where the replay value is a little bit less because now you have to get into more details, beat the game without getting hit, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
For some people, that's just not fun. But back then, it was just like get the highest score. A great example is we had that game for the Palm Pilot that we played. We used to go back and forth on with the shooting thing, and we would spend hours doing it. And I'd be like, "Okay, your turn." He's like, well, "We don't even tell each other what the high score is. We just handed it to each other." And you think, like, "God damn it!"
I hated that game. Yeah.
it got to the point that we were beating each other to a point where it was only by 1 point.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it was just like I'm satisfied with that. Fine, I beat you by 1 point. Fine, and just I'll take that. That's how hard it started getting. But that was the replay value back then. Was just always trying to beat somebody's score. Another thing was back in that time. Again, we're still in the NES era. There was no internet. So with no internet, there was the internet, but it's not the internet we know of today. I mean, if we're talking NES and Atari, actually, technically, no, there was no internet. No,
because it wasn't a Google.
Right.
I mean, you really just had point to point. I mean, transfer files and AOL. You had to have AOL Netscape. So
right. So in that sense, there was no looking up secrets online.
No.
I mean, you got your Nintendo Power magazine, and you were lucky if that had a secret. And then you
Yeah.
had Game Pro, the TV show, and all they really did
Hmm.
was review. And once in a blue moon, you would catch maybe a cheat or something like that, which was
Yeah.
mostly just codes. So
Yeah. Actually.
if your friend didn't know, then you didn't know. Therefore, it never existed until you talk to
Yeah.
somebody new, and then you're like, "Oh yeah, I played that game. Did you get this?" And you're like, "What?
Yeah.
What do you mean get that? That doesn't. You're lying. That doesn't exist." So
Yeah.
now you have to dust off the game, blowing it a few times, and then turn it back on to see if you can find that piece again. So,
Hmm.
I mean, the replay value was ridiculous in some regular Nintendo games, even to this day. A
Yeah.
lot of those games, if you think about it, right? You look at the games that we have on our phone. That's what it is. It's just high
Yeah.
polished 8-bit games. They went
Hmm.
back to being simple. A lot
Yeah.
of indie games went back to the basics of being simple.
Yeah.
Simple, but competitive. Simple, but
Yes.
challenging. And that
Hmm.
challenging is what's there. Now let's step it up a level. I don't want to jump right up to the next gen consoles, but let's go
Yeah.
to Super Nintendo. Super
Hmm.
Nintendo, Sega, because Sega was around the Super Nintendo.
16-bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sega, Super Nintendo era, where
Mhm.
now we're starting to add a little more complexity
Yeah.
to the games, where you got games like Zelda, The Link to the Past, where
Yep.
you know why Zelda got kidnapped, and on top of that, you are going between dimensions, and there's actually a
Mhm.
deeper story where you're not just saving the princess, you're also saving these other princesses that are stuck in stones. So,
Yeah.
and then you're building your inventory. You now have an inventory you're trying to build.
Hmm.
Another good example that you brought up a little bit a while ago was ActRaiser, which was one of my favorite old classics to me,
Yeah.
where it was like a Sim City kind of like thing. Sim City meets RPG because you had to take care of the people, and if they weren't happy, then you couldn't move on. Then you had to do certain parts of the map before you went on to the next one. So
Yeah.
I mean, now they started to add, hey, listen, let's add more to these games besides just
Hmm.
saying, hey, you get from one end of the map to the other, and you eventually run out of things to do with that.
Yeah.
They had racing games for regular Nintendo, they had, but it was literally
Yeah.
move, 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 watch for this turn, break, make the
Yep.
time, like stuff like that. But
Rad Racer.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Rad Racer, Knight
Spy
Rider,
Hunter.
Spy Hunter. Yep, yep. So
Hmm.
it was still the same thing. Now you're adding, F-Zero to the map, and not
Yeah.
only are you racing the other guys, but now you got to worry about explosive guys. Your stages are missing now, so you got to make
Hmm.
these jumps, and now the world's going like more 3D instead of just straight, and
Yeah.
that's when things started to get more complex. But the difficulty level, I think, increased because they were like, okay, now we can do more with this. So you've introduced the
Okay.
story. I think Super Nintendo, and that's why it was one of my favorites.
Hmm.
Super Nintendo reached the prime where it met the perfect culture of both. It had great story and great innovation with difficulties still being there. And
Okay.
I think that Super Nintendo had that perfect mix. And Zelda, like I said, I think Zelda was that perfect example because Zelda was the first game that you spent a long time playing.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't one of those games. Oh, I'm gonna beat this in 24 hours. No, you were playing it for a very long time because of
Yeah.
you had to beat this world first before you could start this world because you needed this weapon. You had to go up to the mountain and find this. That one is when you really needed Nintendo Power Magazine. Like you
Yeah.
needed Nintendo Power Magazine for that one. So,
Oh yeah, and
go
well,
ahead.
and I think too with like when as soon as we step from 8 to 16-bit, you know, Zelda for me was one of the really first ones where you had a depth to the game, not necessarily in story and level progression, but like the levels themselves, you can get attacked from high up, down below, and you had to switch between stuff. So it wasn't just like a linear. You were on a map, push this block, and go up and down. It was like, okay, you had to think, well, if that's on top, how do I get that down here? Well, if I push this block down here,
Hmm.
go back out and around, So it was one of those three-dimensional,
Hmm.
for the lack of a better term, because you had not necessarily the depth in terms of quality, but just depth. I mean, you had height, and that to me that was huge.
Hmm.
Stepping from You had Link, like going from Zelda in 8-bit to Link was like you went from top down to side,
Yeah.
and like that was it. Now you went from side to top down, but then like multiple levels of
Yeah.
top down. So, I mean, I like to honestly think, however, and I hate to say it, but like to me, I think the difficulty went down a little bit when they started trying to up, like the seesaw effect started happening, because like Final Fantasy, when it first came out for NES, great game, it was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Like it made Dark Souls like now
Yeah.
look like a kiddie game, because it was kind of like the levels were like so vast. Like even if it was just basic top down, you'd have to go like 12, 13 floors down.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't just warp out. You couldn't save.
Mm-hmm.
You only had so many heals to use, so many potions you can carry, and you still had to fight all the way back up. Why having random encounters? I noticed with Nintendo, well, 64, not just Nintendo, the next generation, the 16-bit, it's you had a little more checkpoints, you had a few more saves you could do here and there. So I like to think of it as more like, we cut our teeth with the Atari, pretty much you're dead one shot.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo, you had a few lives to work with. Like the Super Nintendo, they kind of like made it a little broader, in my opinion, where it was like more, it didn't put so many people off,
Right.
because then you start getting into more of that balance. Well, okay, I want to get the princess, but do I want to spend 2-3 hours in this one area?
Right.
And it's like the seesaw kind of went from like punishing, but then it started bringing down the fun, like
Yeah.
a little more so. But it wasn't to where, oh yeah, I'll just blow through this in a day, like you said. It made you think more, and
Mhm.
instead of just like throwing yourself against a wall until eventually you were like, okay, good, I beat it. Let's move on.
Yeah, and like you said, I think that's where they really broadened the video game culture to a new
Mhm.
point where they're like, because some people were just like, yeah, it's just too simple. You know what I mean? Like for some people, it was just too simple. The people that got into it, they thought it was complex and they thought it was difficult, and they're right
Mhm.
because they thought of it more than just having a dot come from one screen to the other, and that was such an amazing thing to design. Like people look at the world now digitally and they're blown away. They're like, how can you design something like that? Well, take that and go back to the Atari days. That was amazing for that time. You know what I mean? It's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's the same thing. Like we literally took nothing and made that nothing into bloops on your screen that you can control. Like even just to fathom just that now and not understanding technology is an amazing concept that we're able to put a bunch of numbers together and have them make pictures to do what we want them to do digitally. And that's an incredible feat at any level from Atari to all the way to PlayStation 4. I mean, it's incredible. But I think you're right. It's what starts to happen, which we'll get to in a little bit with the older systems, is you start adding complexity to the games to make the game more advanced. The game starts to become a little bit easier, which Dark Souls kind of brought that reality. I mean, it didn't fix the tilt by any means because I mean Dark Souls, you have a very very few titles that you can say equals what Dark Souls is. But in these next generation consoles, of course. But it starts to be like, oh, so we can have amazing graphics and difficulty. Well, like, yeah. It's just something that I think I've come to understand is the more control that we are able to have over our guy and more realism that we put in the game, it becomes a little bit easier because now it's more of a realistic feel. Like, oh, what do I do in a situation like this? Oh, I'm going to barrel roll, obviously. You can barrel roll out the way and you stab somebody. When you take those abilities away, now you're stuck with what you have. Jump and swing. Like Kung Fu, you either kick or you punch, and that was it. And so now you got all these guys coming at you. Now it's more of like, I got to do this timing perfect because I can't barrel roll into a spin kick and get out of the situation and just keep barrel rolling. Now it's you're limiting the abilities of what you can do, and that's what made those games hard. Now we give those guys characters so much more abilities. Now where it becomes a difficult is where a lot more people are getting, the games are becoming more popular is sports games and those head-on-head games like Smash Brothers and stuff, because
Yeah.
the difficulty now is that competitor. It's
Yeah.
going against somebody and proving that you're better than that other person. So, again, it's still now it allows you to do more still. You know what I mean? That difficulty
Yeah.
level is there, but it's only based on if that other person equals your ability as well. So.
Yeah, and and it's funny because like you brought up that the reflexes, and I think that's what we're almost going back to. With Kung Fu, perfect example. Link, if you had to time your shots because you only had two motions, so if your reflexes you couldn't flip, punch one way, kick the other way, jump, stab, down thrust, things like that. It's kind of like you really start separating, gamers versus people that just sit down and casually play. And I think, and we've talked about it before too, is us older generation gamers, we can just pick up a controller and learn a game.
Yeah.
Because it's you have that just mindset. That's how you're wired, and it's kind of like when you strip away just a button mashing game, because to me that's what a lot of these action RPG games have now come down to, because you have all these abilities where you're just not having to worry about roll, but just X, circle, triangle, left, right. You're doing a set of motions. So that's why I like multiplayer. Smash Brothers, perfect example, because you have somebody okay, he's coming at me. I know if I do this, he's not just going to automatically block or something. You have the dynamic that now sort of shifts back to how games were, where you have more, but you have the unpredictability where limited controls give you also, because you can only do so much to get past something.
Right. So now that moves us on to the next generation, which we could start to lump a lot more consoles into this because it's very similar.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into the PlayStation 1s and then PlayStation 2s with the Xboxes, and even up to now. Now we're adding more complexity to these games where it's a full movie. You're playing a cinema now. You're no longer playing a game to just save a princess, but you're playing the game to see what the story of the main character is. Now there's a story to it. Super Nintendo, like I said, with Zelda really introduced the story to it. I mean, we had I mean, I guess I can't lie. Final Fantasy has always had a story to it. It's just it was a different.
And it really hasn't been an emotional one. And not cutting you off,
No.
but it's kind of like Final Fantasy is the novel versus Zelda would be like fiction or like a manga. It's more animated and it's more
quicker,
emotionally driven. Yes.
Right. So I guess stories have existed in the regular Nintendos, but it just wasn't popular yet. No one played video games to find out a story. And that's what I told a lot of people. Me growing up, I had a hard time reading because I felt like it wasn't that I couldn't read the words. I knew how to read. It was a very boring thing for me. It wasn't entertaining. So I would get halfway through a page and I'm now just looking at words, and I'm just like, I'm really don't understand what's going on because I'm not paying attention. I'm making it look like I'm reading just because I have to. And with video games, games like Final Fantasy taught me to read, taught me to be intertwined into a story that these words actually mean something, and in my head what's going on. So that was a very key part of me growing up and learning to read. But now you're no longer reading the stories. The story is being told to you as like a movie in PlayStation era. And so now they still had ones that you would read, but now games are becoming more popular because it's easier. It's less minds to think about what you're doing. It's just because now the story's being told to you. And I think this is when the floodgates have really opened in, where people are starting to like it, because now they also make the game self-explanatory, opposed to regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo. You had to read the manual to figure out what you had to do. What do I have to do here? Games don't come with manuals anymore. So, you know what I mean? Because everything's pretty much the same. You just look at the controls. They show you the controls at the beginning of the game. All right, good luck. And now I mean, there's a shitload more control, which is kind of funny, actually. I want to bring that up, right? Controls are more complex now, and we have no books. There's a lot more buttons to push and more things that the buttons do, but there's no books.
You know what? I'm gonna go into a conspiracy theory on this one, and I think this was the long-term plan with gaming companies because it's kind of like let's just
Yeah.
train them to get this motion down, and you know what? We'll add another button,
Yeah.
raise the price a little, add another button, raise the price a little, and like they keep doing that. Before you know it, we're paying $60 for a controller that we need now because it's kind of like
One, two,
I
three,
need
four, five,
shoulder buttons.
We pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we pay almost $7 a button. Give or take. So we're paying
That we
more.
can't game without, dude. Like, hey, I love regular Nintendo. I pick up that controller that pretty much has, what, 6 buttons, including the directional, and I'm like, oh, okay, so jump and attack.
Just jump and attack. But like, no,
Come on.
that ain't right.
Give
Let
me
me
a
hook my
purple
Xbox.
controller.
Give me my Xbox controller. I'm gonna hook my Xbox controller to this.
But hey, and you know what's funny? We look back, and remember when we had like the turbo controllers?
Oh, yeah.
We like look at that and be like,
yeah,
I can't do that many buttons at one time.
It's like-
I'm like,
no, you're like no. The number of the regular Nintendo joystick that they had, the Nintendo brand joystick. I look at that, I'm like, I'm not gonna play with that damn thing. That's way too many buttons. What do you need that many buttons? Jump and punch. That's all I need. Jump and freaking
thank you.
punch, and that's all I care about.
Oh, and then PlayStation came out with the DualShock, and you were like, oh, nubs.
Dude, I remember my reaction during the first PlayStation when it came out. I looked at the controller and I looked at my dad. I'm like, "What is this? Where's the real controller? This isn't right." Even Nintendo 64, the Nintendo 64. I'm like, how am I supposed to hold this? Like, there's a thing here to hold on to.
It's like you had the swizzle stick here, then you had the D-pad here, but then you had another small nub right here, and like, yeah, you pick it up and you're like, and then all of a sudden a week later you're like, son of a bitch, and like you're playing with like nothing. I'm like, get out of here.
I'm like, which one's the D-pad? These yellow buttons or the gray one? Because the yellow buttons were designed as a D-pad, but then they had the original AB right there. So I'm like, which ones are the real buttons? I don't know. And then what is this thing in the middle? I don't know what this is. They call it a joy stick. There's no joy in this stick. I feel no joy in this. So
it's like, will I press it too hard? And if we look at the PDP controller, prime example.
I know, like, right?
You need but now you play it and it's like, oh, I can do this no problem. When you look at it, you're like, how do I press all those?
Yeah, it's like the GameCube when the first GameCube came out, and you look at this, you're like, why is the joysticks not proportioned to each other? Why are they offset? Like, how am I supposed to do it? And we always make it. I don't know how.
I equate to gaming like when you first learn to drive. You have both feet on the gas and brake, and you're looking down, and you're like, well, okay, and about like after a month, you're just like, oh, I've been doing this my entire life,
I'm driving with my knees, for crying out loud. This is easy.
While playing a game, you're like,
and texting, playing the game on one hand and then texting on the other.
Yeah, and then it's like you're looking at your foot down there doing nothing. You're like lazy.
You're like, oh, look at that. All you're doing is pressing the clutch, braking gas. Let me give you some extra. You add some paddles down there to do random shit.
There you go. Like, just second player. Come on, help me out down there.
Oh, Jesus Christ. But that's another thing about, a lot of people forget within these games. We had the complexity of controller, and it's still it added fear because we're just like, what are we supposed to do with all these buttons? What are we supposed to do to remember? And one thing that we've learned through time is that everything becomes what's the word I'm looking for? Everything just becomes
second nature.
Yeah, so much second nature to you because it's almost like breathing. You know where your buttons are, and it's not so much you're thinking, because someone asks you, hey, what button hits? And you just say this button, and you're like you're holding the controller, and they're like, I have no idea what button. This one. That's all I know. I don't know if that's A, B. I play all the systems. That's the disadvantage of playing all the systems, is that it's like, okay, A's over here, but is that circle? For you're like, which one is that?
Hey, no, Nintendo's the only one that goes fuck you. Like, Sony and Xbox have a scheme, and it's like X is here on all the controllers, and Nintendo's like, nope, fuck you, and put it up here. I'm like,
they go, you know what? we're gonna change the whole world, and we're going to make the controller now a remote control. And it's like, good luck. You're like, oh my
Yeah.
Nintendo, why do you do this to me every time?
It's like you just get done using like the GameCube. You're like, oh, okay, this is not so bad. And all of a sudden, a nunchuck, and they're like,
What the? So all right, so
what?
so my joystick is no longer connected to the controller.
It's like,
So
but my hand's all the way out here. What am I supposed to
it's
do?
like now you're going to move. You're like, like what's it doing? It's wandering away. Your hand's wandering away now while you're trying to move. So it's like you're moving your guy and your hand's slowly moving with the guy.
Go, 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 go. And hey, I'm sorry if you've never leaned or sort of done this in a driving game.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
you pulled your hand.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I've had it where the Wii cable went taut. Like I'm sitting there playing, I'm just like, get back over here.
It's like, oh, I think I need that plugged in. We'll plug that back in. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that. I mean, they definitely through time when they changed the controller really kind of threw a wrench in it. But I mean, to add the different features to the games, obviously they had to. But like I was saying, as far as the complexity of the games, they got more complex, but they didn't get harder. They got complex in the sense of they added more features and abilities for you to do to make it easier for you to accomplish your mission. So a great example I'm going to use is a game like Assassin's Creed. Now when you have all this free world, so you're getting chased by a mob of people, what do? What would you do in real life? You would run and hide. So you go run, hide, and you stay hidden for a little while, and eventually they go away. So it's almost like in a lot of games, they baby you, too. Like, they make the games easier so that way it's more appealing for a bigger crowd to want to play it. And I can understand that. I definitely can understand it. And I can understand you could change your level. For example, like The Last of Us on hard, yeah, it's not fun. So it's not even a point to play it. But it's good that they do have that feature. So I guess, in a sense, a lot of difficulties are still there in the game. It's just whether you choose to do it or not. But sometimes it's not worth doing it so hard because of the fact of then it just makes the game not fun. That's when you got to find that fine line of, okay, what's too hard. But games, like I said, it's so in depth that it makes it a little bit easier because you just like you follow. They lead you to what to do. It's not like you're just in a stage. You're like, okay, where do I go from here? Like in The Last of Us, you'll get like a little sense bar, and you'll be like, I think I'm supposed to do that, and then you go over there and you do it. But in Mario, Mario is just flat, one side. But Wizards and Warriors was a prime example because I would always get lost in the woods in that game. I'm jumping around the trees, and I'm like, where the fuck is the door? And like I'm jumping in the same spot for 20 goddamn minutes. Where is the door? Like, I don't get where the hell this door is. Zelda, like, you had to touch the grave in a certain pattern. You know how long it took me to figure... I had to read Nintendo Magazine. I had to wait until the issue of January's Nintendo Magazine came out for me to figure that... So I couldn't go into the next freaking tavern. Like, that shit was awful.
Or how many ghosts you spawn. And then you have to go and reset them. It's like, water
so
temple.
Fast.
Dude, Water Temple in Ocarina is still the same. The only reason I will not play, I'm up to that part on the 3DS, and I'm like, I'm gonna come back to you.
Yeah, you know what? Not right now.
No, because dude, you would flip a fucking switch on floor 6 to open the door on floor 3, and it's just kind of like. So now you're sitting on like floor 5 all of a sudden because the game's like, fuck you, that's how I work, and then you're like. But when I flooded over here, I can't get back over here. I'm done,
God of War was similar to that in a sense when they started adding puzzles to it. And there were certain puzzles I remember I would be stuck on for like an hour. And I'd just sit there and stare at the screen for an hour and see if I can figure it out because it just got to a point like, okay, I can't touch anything. I just got to look at it. I just have to look at it. So...
and then when you started getting those pressure switches, and then it's like you get in this small room, and if you do this pressure switch, before you put that statue on that one, everything burns and you die. And then it's just kind of like, because then you lay it out in your head, and you're like grafting it on paper, and you're like, so move there, but those are satisfying to me because
Right.
it's kind of like if I can spend 5 minutes scratching my head, like Dragon Age has these astrolabe
Mm,
puzzles,
mm.
and all it is you have to connect the constellation without crossing over a line. We've all done those stupid puzzles. They give you a picture of it in the corner, and you sit there. I've spent maybe 10 minutes on one of the upper end one where it's like fucking 47 connections. And I'm like, but those right there, because you're like, reset, fuck, but it's a progressive thing because you go from like like 3 connections, 7 connections, 10. So you feel yourself getting, but then when you finally fucking get it, you put down the controller and you're like, but I like puzzles that force me to think. Anything longer than probably 20 minutes, and then I'm just going to be like, okay, Google, okay, good. Because then it stops getting fun, and I don't justify the reward
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say, like, doing the puzzles, and all of a sudden you do it, you're just like, thank you. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna put the controller down. Like, you know what? I'm gonna save it first, real quick, right now. Save it.
yes.
Save it right now. Put it down. Okay, no one touched the system for a few minutes. I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm just gonna go for a walk. I need the walk. And you just walk and like the birds are chirping, the sun's out. And you sit back down and you're just like, I don't even know if I
That
want to
just
play the
happened.
game anymore.
I beat it, but that was only the first world. I don't care. I'm done.
I don't know if I want to do. I'm so afraid of what's coming next.
That's true.
I'm terrified. I don't know if I want to play on anymore.
Dude, I'm the exact opposite. I complete a puzzle, and I'm like, I am God, and I start running into shit. I'm like, you see what I did in that room? Come at me, and I'm just like, and then I die, and I'm like, oh God, tell me I saved after I was done with that puzzle.
It's so funny because like in God of War, if I didn't get to save point and it's like I just finished something, like I go so slow, like I take 2 steps. I take two steps. I take 2 steps, and that was another thing too. It's that sense of accomplishment. Now, the
Yeah.
article that I sent you that we were reading, the fear of failing,
And it's on the Facebook page, guys, so check it out.
yeah, the whole thing is pretty. It's a pretty interesting read. It just talks about,
is.
the gamer's personality and kind of where we come from as far as, how we feel when we lose our lives, the value of our lives in a game, opposed to the rewards and how we feel after we win and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it's a really good read if you have time. Did you want to break a little bit into it, Chris? Talk a little bit about
I mean,
what you got from it.
It's in depth. Like it's not just one of these some 15-year-old put it together about his opinions. Like this is like a legitimate study that he did, and I mean it breaks it down into the psychology of how a person thinks. And I say person because they did men and female. And it's about the challenge versus reward. And do we as gamers like such a challenge like Dark Souls where it's kind of like we're masochists, or we want that but we don't want it. We want something to where we feel accomplished for, but not to the simple fact we're killing ourselves. But on the same end, we get bored with games where it's just kind of like we can beat a game without saving. And we just go through that. So he broke down all the studies, and he actually went down and compared test groups, and where it was like, okay, some groups were given a game where it was just easy, ramped up the difficulty to the point of where it was brutal. People dropped off. So it was kind of like, and my perfect analogy sums it up too, because it's kind of like you have like, if you spend, what your limit is, I may be 20 minutes, Van could be 5 minutes, somebody else could be 2 minutes, it's wherever you could end off, taking something to where you can feel gratified with it. And ultimately that's what he was getting at with, the whole article. And believe me, I'm summing it up. I'm not necessarily verbatim, but it was kind of like, we as gamers, we want something that's complex, but we want to feel like we're achieving something.
Right.
And we've grown and we've matured from the 8-bit days where it's kind of like, oh, I have to go to world 88 and save the princess, jump, 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 but not in the simple fact is, Dark Souls 2 on goddamn Nightmare, where like a leaf can kill us. It's one of those things where we wanna make progress, but we don't want it handed to us. So I
Hmm.
think that's probably the best way to sum up the article.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed the nail on the head. It's more about how us gamers, we want to earn it, but again, we don't want to go through hell to try to get that as well,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because
and
then that
but you
takes
know
the
what?
fun
And
out.
yeah, well, it does, and also it's depending on who you are as a gamer. Like I play Dark Souls every now and then when I'm feeling a little too happy, but at the same point, it's kind of like I like playing games on the hardest difficulty. Because it's just kind of like, first of all, I'm a trophy hoard, so that's just one thing. If trophies linked to difficulty levels, I'll play the difficulty, but I typically won't play through a game I know I'm going to play through multiple times on the hardest difficulty. Like if I know if I'm just going to one shot a game and that not worry about platinum, I'll do it normal because I want to enjoy the game.
Hmm.
But if I'm platinum a game, or if it's like Final Fantasy, Dragon Age, I'll go for a completionist where I'll play it on the hardest difficulty because, I mean, for me, I experience more of the game because I'm not blowing through it. I'm not, just running over everything. It's like I'm taking the environments into effect. I'm like slowly creeping. I'm like immersing myself more into the game. So I think for me, not necessarily from a completionist standpoint, but it's how much I want to get back from the game. Is how I ramp up my difficulty for it.
Right, right. I'm trying to think of the hardest game that I've ever played. I mean, Final Fantasy 7 was hard. In a
Mm-hmm.
sense of it took a long time to do, and there were some missions in it that were very difficult
Yeah,
to a point, but there was just a lot of grinding, and I think
yeah,
there's a difference between time consuming and hard. I think Final Fantasy VII was more on the time consuming part. Not saying that it wasn't
yeah,
hard, because it was
mm,
difficult.
yeah.
To say it was the hardest game I played, I can't say that. Star Ocean Second Story, I think that game was very hard because I was getting to
Mm,
points that I was just constantly dying. So
yeah.
the grinding in there became difficult because I had to grind because of how hard it was.
Okay.
So I think that was the difference between that and Final Fantasy. Um, the one, the one for PlayStation One. Yeah, if you died, if you died and you ran out of continues, you had to start the entire game over again. And I think the farthest I've ever gone in that game was maybe the third level or fourth level. It was a 3D flat. It
Oh,
was a 3D 2D platformer,
I know that game. Oh,
and
yeah.
I loved the game. It was hard as shit. And never mind the rest of the game. The first level was hard as shit. So when you finally got to beat the first level, you're like happy. And you're like but you knew you were gonna get into the second level. It was just gonna be even worse. So you're just like, that game was so hard. And the only reason I continued playing was because it was my dad's favorite game, and I just wanted to prove that I was better than him in that game, and I was not better than him in that game. He spent so much time in that game, but I've never seen a man die so many times. Like he was absolutely okay with going back to level 1. At the age of like I think I might have been 12, I was not okay with going back to level 1. It was not okay. You know,
No.
after spending an hour getting out of the first stage and I had to go back to the first stage, no, it's not okay.
Oh my, yeah, no, no, I'm good. I don't even think I picked up that game. Like it was one of those things where you touch it and you get a shiver,
Hmm.
and it's like, no, I'm putting this back down. Mine would have to be a tie because these are one of the very few games I haven't beat. Would have to be Ghost and Goblins for NES
Hmm.
and Battletoads because Battletoads was speeder bikes.
Oh, this
Fucking
fucking speed is
I,
bikes.
I couldn't do the speeder bikes every single
Oh
goddamn
my
time. I
god.
lost my temper because it got to the point I think where I beat it, but then like I had a pixel death. When you get one of
Oh.
them type of glitch. Yeah. Anyways, moving on, and then Ghosts and Goblins, the entire goddamn game.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that game was really hard. That game was
so
really, really hard.
and me, I'm like thinking back, I'm like, oh, that would be such a wonderful game to play again. And I'm like, nah, because
No.
I watch gameplay before I sit there and try to kill myself over something. And all of a sudden, I'm watching, it's like 1, 2. No, actually 2 hits until you get the gold armor, which is like 2 levels away from the end. So I'm like, nah, fuck you. Like that bitch is staying gone. So yeah, no, and you know what? They're both old gen.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, no, I can't. I'd rather play Dark Souls over and over and over again instead of ever playing those 2 games.
I'm trying to think of what my hardest Nintendo game was. I know Super Nintendo. Me and my brother beat. We had it down to a point. We had Turtles in Time. We beat in an hour, and
Damn.
I think Power Rangers too. And we tried to beat it like faster and faster every time. But Turtles in Times, I think we got to beat that one in an hour. I mean, that was a run through. That was a run through.
Yeah.
My brother, I witnessed my brother beat Crash Bandicoot. I can't remember which one it was. Can't remember if it was 1 or 2. It might have been 2 because he was excited about it coming out. So
Yeah.
Crash Bandicoot 2, he beat the entire game without shutting it off in one entire day. He beat the game in 24 hours. So
Oh my god.
he never shut the game off, and he beat it in 24 hours. He sat there and played the game, then stopped playing it, and that's what he told me. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna beat this today." So I was like, "All right." Well, so I was like, "All right, then I won't play video games for a whole day. If you say you're gonna beat this without saving it, I won't." Came down for lunch, went back up, continued playing it, and then came down for dinner, went back up, and beat the entire game. He's like, "I'm done." I'm like, "No, you're not." He's like, "I'm done." I go up there. He beat it. I was like, "Oh my god!" He beat Crash Bandicoot 2 in an entire day. I don't even think he saved. I think he
Wow.
just ran through it, and he was
Are you
able to do it.
serious?
Yeah, I was so impressed. That's when I knew that I was like, okay,
Wow.
he may be up to my level in gaming.
Yeah, I would have to. I'd have to tip my hat to him on that one. All right, I tell you what. Let's go through each generation. All right.
All right.
So we already know mine for NES. What about yours for NES?
Dragon Quest.
Ooh.
Dragon Quest was a bitch.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not too particularly happy with Dragon Quest. I think that was hard, especially towards the end. I had a very difficult time beating that game. It was just I couldn't get the right combination of crap to beat. It was hard. That was a
Okay.
hard one. Yeah, that was a hard
Fair,
one.
fair enough. Super Nintendo.
Did you say Super Nintendo one?
No.
No. What's yours for Super Nintendo? I'm trying to think of, because Super Nintendo, I ran through a lot of games. I ran through a
Yeah,
lot
me
of
too.
games for Super Nintendo. And it really wasn't too hard. Right now, Zelda, I'm going to say Zelda Link to the Past until I can think of another one just because it took a long time to do it. But as far as difficulty-wise, it really wasn't like hard. Once I beat Zelda, it was easy
Yeah.
enough for me that I just kept running through. So, and that's another thing people got to remember. Just because, like, you got to remember the very first time you beat it, the difficulty level. So when
Yeah.
you go back and you run through it, you know the game, so you can run through it a lot easier. So some people get stuck. Oh yeah, I beat that game like 15 times. Yes, oh that's great. But how long did it take you the very first time?
Yep.
Breath
Mine would be Lion King for the SNES.
Really?
It's a tie between Lion King and Aladdin.
You know what? I was gonna say Aladdin, but I beat Aladdin in the very first time, and I think I beat it in a few days, and it was just because I was so dedicated to beat it, and that was
Okay.
one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. I don't know why. Like I absolutely love that Nintendo. I think everything about the game was just well put together.
Well, and because I did not have an issue with the SNES genre generation like I did which not to say I didn't bang my head against the wall, but those 2 games had those moments, and it all has to do with these goddamn speed. Aladdin was the Cave of Wonders, and Lion King was when Mufasa fell, and you had to get away from the wildebeest.
Hold on, I just gotta see which one it was. Hold on, because it matters. Because I think I only one of the yeah okay, Super Star Wars. Super Star Wars was so hard that I didn't even play Empire Strikes Back. I did not want to play. I never beat Super Star Wars. I absolutely hated that game because of how hard it was. I've never gotten that mad at a game to a point where I'm just like, you know what? I don't even want to beat it anymore. I don't even care what it does. Super Star Wars. The farthest I could go, right, was a part where you see the Ewoks. Well, the Ewoks, the guys in the capes. No, the Ewok.
Yeah. Well.
Are those the Jabberwockies?
You talking about the desert ones or the forest ones?
The desert ones.
Oh, no, I don't. There's something else.
What the hell?
Not nerf herders, but...
Well, anyways, it's the desert. Yeah. You start off in the desert level, but there's another part of the desert world where you're walking down the sand walker or the sand tank or whatever, and those things just keep randomly fucking coming out and shooting you. And that's another game. Your game over. That's it.
Yeah.
So I think I got onto the cruiser ship once where you had to do the thing, and I died. I just died instantly. It was like I beat the stage that it took me forever to beat finally, and then I start the stage and I die, and it was my last freaking continue. And like I think I broke the Super Nintendo controller. My dad was so pissed off because we had one Super Nintendo controller for like months because I broke it. I was so mad, dude. That game was so stupid, stupid. The Lion King, dude, is number 5.
Yeah, fuck that bitch.
Number 5. Contra's number 2? No way. Contra 3?
Well,
Contra 3? No way.
No, this is without the Konami code.
No, I could beat Contra. You know what game was hard? Gradius. I used to play that with the code all the time where I had everything. But no, Contra, dude, I didn't have problems with Contra. I used to play Contra without the code. I didn't like using the code for Contra.
Contra was a marathon. That's the thing. Like, you got into Contra, if you like fucked up or you were not on your game, like the latter like 3 levels, like those 3 lives. Actually, no, that one was 4.
And then you're playing with somebody else, and he takes your continue. You're like, hey, don't take my continue if you die. All of a sudden, how'd you get back? Why are you back playing? Didn't you use your last continue? And all of a sudden, you die. No continues.
And they would screen block you.
Yep.
Fuck playing with people. Because they would be like, I'm back here. And you're like, the wall. And then it would like, no, let's not go down that road.
All right, so that was Super Nintendo. Nintendo 64. There was a game that I tried to play, and I had a lot of difficulty trying to play it, and I can't remember which one it was. Crash Bandicoot was a pain in the ass. Not Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, it was.
Banjo-Kazooie.
Okay. Yep.
That was a pain in the ass. I don't know if it was the hardest. Super Mario 64 was pretty fucking hard.
Oh,
that game was hard. Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know about Nintendo 64, man. I played a lot in Nintendo 64.
Yeah. I'm gonna put my favorite one up there, Ocarina of Time, because the Water Temple about broke me. Like I went in there a man and came out like a boy. Like I was just kind of like that. That was one of the pinnacle moments of my gamerhood. You know, right next to getting Lucky Sevens on the Emerald Weapon in Final Fantasy VII, which I called you hysterical about that night. But like that. Anybody who's ever played the Water Temple, like Satan himself made that level because nothing made sense in it. And Majora's Mask is right there, but the Water Temple is just pure frustration. Not even difficult, frustrating.
I think Oracle Time was better than Majora's Mask.
Oh, hands down.
I think I liked Majora's Mask, but I think it took everything from Oracle of Time, I believe, and it did. It
didn't
really
was set in
improve
the same
anything.
universe.
Yeah.
It was, but you were down to that time limit, and I hate games that have a time limit.
Yeah.
Like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
What? While you're thinking of the N64, Karate Kid on NES days, you remember the Typhoon level? And
I completely forgot about that game.
And speak of only having 2 buttons, you're like, and you get a fucking debris, and you're like, and you would. Oh,
I got a
that,
question. How could you block everything? How did you?
I didn't. I never. That's one of the games I never beat because of that fucking level. Like, no.
You know, I'm gonna YouTube that after. I want to see somebody beat that. And then
Dude,
the axe swing. It got to a point like you're blocking it,
Oh.
and it got to a point. It was just so fast that you couldn't. You're like, no, how?
Yeah, thank you, because you were like, oh, I'm a badass. Oh,
You would get like motion sickness. You know what I mean? Like it got bad.
dude, and it to the point of when you started doing the flicking, and all of a sudden you pulled your controller out, and you would see it go, and you're like, oh, yeah. That's when, I would yell,
Oh, man.
hands down.
Yeah, that Violent Days.
Yeah, that and two is Shadow Link was at the end of the water temple. So not only did you get 45 minutes of fuck you, then you got to the bottom and you had to face somebody that did everything you did. I'm like, oh god, I'm just gonna have to pause it right here. Gonna go out, just do something, and then come back and do this because I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out at this point.
How about Metal Gear when you went against Psycho Mantis? And then the only way you could beat him was unplug it, your controller, and plug it into the second controller. I was like, "F you, Konami! How the hell are you supposed to know that?"
And before Google, so keep in mind, children.
It was in the manual. It was in the book. And that's the only reason why I found it was because I ended up going back to the book for some weird reason. I'm like, I'm gonna read this, and all of a sudden it was like, what?
The only boss fight that's back there.
What? Why?
I don't think I've ever read a book. The only time I've ever read an instruction manual was on the way home.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that. That's why I did it all the time. Was during that. Well.
Yeah. F that.
Well, I think that's it for the time, man. Was there anything else you wanted to cover?
No.
No.
I think we were, for the most part, on track.
Yeah. I think it was a good topic, and yeah, I think that's it. So next week we'll think of something. We'll think of something good, and we'll get back to you guys on Facebook. If you guys got any suggestions on Facebook, please go on our Facebook page, as you can see up there, Platinum City Gaming, and also Twitter, P City Gaming, and post some topics if you guys want to talk about. We'll talk about anything. We'll talk about anything, even your mama. We don't care. We'll talk about your mama.
There we go. We got movies.
But yeah, so we'll catch you guys next week, Monday, between the hours of 7 to 8 o'clock, and our stuff saved up there. I'm gonna start adding our videos to YouTube so you guys be able to catch past shows on there. So until next week, I'm Van.
I'm Chris,
and we'll catch you later. Peace.
Peace.